Welcome back to those of you who were here for the first session, and welcome to those who are joining us now to what is called the State of the Global Futures Lab address. We started that last year where we tried to summarize some of the highlights. It's impossible to be comprehensive, too much is happening here, but summarize some of the highlights of what has happened during the past year that is actually advancing the spirit of Earth Day. And in order to set the stage, I will go shortly over the history and impact of Earth Day. Many of you know that, all of you should know that, but sometimes it's not bad to hear it again, to just, foster the knowledge of it. Since its inception in 1970, so 55 years ago, Earth Day has become a powerful symbol of environmental awareness, mobilizing more than 1 billion people worldwide this year, with the goal to reflect on our planet's health and to take action to protect and restore this health. The 1 billion is about a 50-fold increase over the roughly 20 million participants who assembled during the first Earth Day, mainly in the US at that time. And they're in schools, colleges, and universities. And the significance of Earth Day lies in its ability to bring together diverse communities, including activists, policymakers, businesses, scientists, indigenous communities, and individuals, all united by a common goal: safeguarding Earth's life-supporting systems for future generations. Inspired by the student anti-war movement and the famous 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill, Senator Gaylord Nelson created Earth Day out of an urgency to act. So you can see 55 years ago, we already had that urgency. This urgency just increased, and we still don't seem to get it, how urgent it is. He worked with 25-year-old Harvard graduate Dennis Hayes, who helped turn Earth Day into a national movement. Nelson also worked with Republican Congressman Pete McCloskey, whose bipartisan support was essential during a politically divided era. Now, that's something that has not changed that much since then. In fact, it is still a challenge to act as a united community rather than along specific lines, such as party lines. This movement gained momentum alongside influential works such as the well-known Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which those of you who don't know it and are wondering why is the title Silent Spring, it came from Rachel Carson's observation that there were fewer and fewer birds singing in spring, and she traced that back to the contamination of the environment in which these birds lived. But also, besides Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, there was the work of the Club of Rome, was founded in 1968 and came out with its first report in 1972 called the well-known Limits to Growth. And that already, more than half a century ago, warned that unchecked population and industrial growth could overwhelm the planet's resources. Together, these forces drove major policy changes. And it's interesting how that fell in terms of timing. It included the Clean Air Act, enacted in 1970, the Clean Water Act in 1972, and the Endangered Species Act in 1973. They also led to the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, shortly known as EPA, which was established in December 1970, which effectively reshaped environmental policy in the United States, and which in the recent past, actually has become under threat to be cut back or maybe even eliminated. So if you look at these timelines, there was quite a bit of action that had long-lasting effect. And looking at this point in time, 55 years later, we have to make sure that this is not being undone. So by now, Earth Day has evolved into a global movement and is observed in over 190 countries. And it addresses challenges such as climate change, deforestation, ocean acidification, and environmental justice, just to name a few. So it has become much broader than the direct cause to establish Earth Day, which was really an environmental agenda. This evolution also mirrors a growing recognition that today's environmental crises are tightly linked to a wider social, economic, and geopolitical challenge. We often talk about planetary boundaries. Many of you know about planetary boundaries. They are all, if you look at the literature, they are all environmental planetary boundaries. And while this is really important, it's important to realize that we are overtaxing the natural resources. We have to recognize that the reason is societal dynamics. It's our decisions to overtax them that leads the push against the boundaries. That in turn feeds back and limits our choices how to live on that planet. So it is a spiral that we have to recognize more than we did in the past. Reflecting on decades since the first Earth Day in 1970, one truth is undeniable. Progress has been made. But there's another truth that's also undeniable. We are not moving fast enough. We have raised awareness, advanced protections, and mobilized action. But despite this, we continue to push Earth's life-supporting systems closer to the limits to support life as we know it. Just to exemplify that, global goals such as the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, both put in place 1 decade ago in 2015, were set to guide us towards a better future for all life on Earth. And it was done with the best intention and the best knowledge at the time. Yet, a decade later, we are still falling short of moving towards these targets. In fact, we are falling further back. Just on the climate side, we are on a trajectory right now towards 2.5 to 2.7 degrees warming instead of the goal of 1.5. Emissions are rising, biodiversity is declining, the impacts of climate change are outpacing our response, and pressure on migration due to environmental and societal impacts is increasing. So awareness is essential, but not enough. Earth Day is a powerful symbol of hope and action, but symbols must be matched with sustained collective effort. The urgency of the adverse effects of global change demands more than intention. It requires transformation at every level of society. We must build on the momentum of past decades while recognizing that the work is far from over. The future depends not just on how far we have come, and we have come quite a bit. If I remember back when I was a teenager, I saw rivers full of foam. They were brown rather than, the bluish color that you would imagine a river should have. And a lot has been done to do that. But we really have, the future depends not just on that action that we have taken, but on how boldly and fast we choose to act from this point forward. This is not a time, based on the recognition of the pressures, to move from being deniers to fatalists. We cannot say the problems have become too big, we cannot solve them anymore, so we just put our head into the sand and ride it out. We have more knowledge about how to move on a more nature-positive trajectory than we are using. And we are steadily increasing this body of knowledge. What is missing is what we often call the societal will to move from insight to action. Earth Day is a reminder that much can be accomplished if we are willing to act. So now to what are we doing in the Julie and Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory, which really was created for the purpose of addressing these issues, to understand the world we are living in, why is that world full of pressure points, and most importantly, what can we do to move onto a better trajectory, to leave the next generations options to shape their life according to their desires. So in essence, the Global Futures Laboratory has been designed to become the prototype of a university for the future of our planet, dedicated to how can that future look, how can it be better than the situations that we are in right now. We will go through some of these examples of what we are doing and what kind of results that has. And you all probably know that we are working in 5 connected so-called spaces. You can call it knowledge domains. It's the learning space, education, the discovery space, research, the solution space, that's our response to what we see, the networking space, we have to work together, the problems are too big for individual institutions, and the engagement space, to make sure that we are not doing all of that in isolation within the halls of academia, but that we understand what knowledge is needed, what knowledge we can deliver already now, or which knowledge can we gather quickly to supply it to those who have to make critical decisions on a moment's notice. So let's start with the learning space, and here we are looking at Dreamscape Learn. So in the learning space, Global Futures Laboratory and our College of Global Futures are pushing the edge of the 5th wave of higher education by reimagining how knowledge is created and shared. It actively involves students in designing new action-oriented approaches to education, thereby empowering them with agency and placing them at the center of engaged, immersive, and solutions-driven learning experiences. One example is the first Global Futures virtual reality course through Dreamscape Learn, CGF 194, that is being given this semester for the first time. There were trial runs before, but now we actually arrived there. It's also demonstrated through the university's implementation of the ASU General Studies Gold requirements, where all incoming students, as of this academic year, will take a sustainability course as part of their base requirements, among other base requirements, and there are 6 of them. Sustainability, therefore, can now be considered a core discipline alongside disciplines such as language, science, math, and humanities. The Arizona Board of Regents and the ASU Senate just recently approved a new 5th school, the School of Conservation Futures, which is situated in the College of Global Futures. The university will be making a formal announcement of this important evolution of the college and the Global Futures holistic and inclusive approach shortly. A few updates on CGF, SOF, SOS, SFIS, SCAS. I will spell them out as I go through. So actually everybody should know these acronyms, but we will get to them. So College of Global Futures, Mickey was named the Dean of the College of Global Futures a few weeks ago, formally. We had already heard from the inaugural cohort of 20 CGF students who were the Global Futures Impact Scholars initial program. CGF alums led the local Conference of Youth USA, which gathered 150 young climate leaders at ASU to discuss some of the most pressing challenges of our time. To the schools, let's start with the School of Ocean Futures. The School of Ocean Futures has welcomed their first cohort of students within 2 Bachelor of Science programs, an online master's program and a PhD program. The school was created about 2 years ago, but as all of you know, to get the programs then launched takes a bit of time. But they are going, and they are going strong. They also added an online modality for undergraduates starting next fall. These complement the in-person degrees in Ocean Futures, now part of the Western Undergraduate Exchange, to expand access and affordability to higher education across the region. And you already heard, those of you who were here for the previous panel, that people in the desert or arid regions are actually interested in the water part of our planet, and after all, 70% of the surface of our planet is covered by water, and after all, we are called, or Earth is called, the water planet. School of Sustainability. So students are working with Sustainable Cities Networks and Project Cities to address the sustainability challenges of Arizona cities, while learning about sustainability careers in local government. SO's faculty are leading the new ASU Farm Initiative. That's something that is just bubbling up, and we are considering how to actually implement that and on which scale. SO is also led in delivering sustainability courses for ASU's General Studies Gold requirement and is developing new programs to meet evolving workforce needs. So for this General Studies Gold requirement, we have to make sure that there are enough courses for, in our case, for sustainability, which is our track. And there is an increasing number of these gold courses. At this point, we probably have crossed the mark of 50 plus. And that is important for us to actually showcase what that field means, to offer students different entry points into our world of thinking about the present and the future of our world. And so that's a real important activity. The School for the Future of Innovation in Society. SFIS is fostering international engagement through events such as the Dubai Future Forum. The school is also rethinking its future right now in a strategic planning exercise, has supported the expedited completion of a doctoral degrees in innovation and global development for the University of Guyana faculty, and is currently planning a redesign of not just the school as a whole, but specifically the undergraduate programs to increase consequential impact. ESCAS, the School of Complex Adaptive Systems. ESCAS has renamed its Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics for Life and the Social Sciences to a much simpler and more targeted name, the Bachelor of Science in Complexity Science. That also completes a full suite of programs, Bachelor of Science, Master of Science, PhD, devoted to complex adaptive systems, with strong growth in the online MS and PhD programs. For example, over 30 PhD applications were received this cycle, with 4 expected to enroll this fall. ESCAS also has a new course, CAS 200, launching in fall 2025, so this fall, and it earned the college's first Scientific Thinking in Natural Sciences designation. Besides the teaching, faculty in ESCAS are securing major grants across all ranks and host international climate modeling workshop with National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR, typically known, is the known name. And they're advancing work on complexity and indigenous knowledge and expanding collaboration with the decision theater. So from the learning space to a short summary of events where we celebrated significant milestones. BIOS, another acronym, the Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences, BIOS celebrated World Ocean Day by honoring its 120 years of marine research. That's one of the oldest marine research institutions. BIOS also launched the ASU Bermuda Tuition Scholarship Program that offers 5 full tuition scholarships to Bermudians. BIOS is also operating the longest running continuous deep ocean time series called Hydrostation S in the Atlantic, and that time series just turned 70 years. The nomination S is, there was a series of stations and they were just, named from A to along the alphabet. And this is one of the longest ones and still going strong. Last year, the Akoa Coral Nursery launched at a Ridge to Reef Restoration Center in Kailua, Kona, Hawaii. And this initiative is being led by Greg, Robin, and others, our outpost, our other center in the Pacific, sort of mirroring BIOS in the Atlantic. So when we are talking about ocean presence, there's quite a bit here in Tempe, but we are actually operating directly at sites that are located in the middle of the major oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, not to minimize the Indian Ocean and the Southern Ocean, but typically, for global oceanography, Pacific and Atlantic are considered as primary oceans. Now, a few updates on programs, projects, and initiatives. So there is another nice acronym, SWISI, probably not as well known as some of the other ones, the Southwest Sustainability Innovation Engine, a major initiative, one of the first 10 regional innovation engine awarded by the National Science Foundation. Within it has a variety of activities. One of them was to award 1.5 million in innovation grants to 8 startups out of 220 applicants across 16 states. These startups are advancing new technologies in semiconductor manufacturing, solar power, mining, and atmospheric water harvesting to accelerate commercialization and to address air quality, water security, and energy resilience across Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, so it's a regional program. It also awarded 1.56 million in catalyst grants to 16 university-led projects with about $440,000 in additional partner contributions. These grants support early-stage research in water reuse, carbon capture, low-carbon concrete, bioenergy, and long-duration storage. 7 projects were completed in year 1. The remainder are on track for May 2025, actually just next month. SWISI collaborated with SRP, Salt River Project, and CM Blue in launching the largest non-lithium battery project in the US. Construction is set to begin on a 5 megawatt long-duration energy storage pilot in Florence, Arizona. SWISI now has over 150 partners, including utilities, clean tech accelerators, and universities, strengthening regional commercialization and workforce pipelines. It surpassed workforce development goals, enrolling 1,033 learners in sustainability training and launching K-12 programs that reached 3,200 plus students across Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. So what you see in SWISI is a new way in which universities work, in which they engage with the region. This program is run very differently than a normal university program where you have a faculty member running a center or an institute or a program and then has other researchers, faculty members, students, etc., partners to work with them. SWISI is run by a CEO, Brian Sherman, assisted by a COO and a CIO, Chief Innovation Officer. And So in a way, it is moving towards being run like a private sector entity. And that will be a big part of where Global Futures Lab is moving towards. Operating fast, nimble, and in sync with the outside world. Always drawing from the foundation of acquiring fundamental knowledge through academic activities. The Water Institute was launched in March 24 and is designed to address the complex water challenges of our rapidly changing world, where water and climate intersect with food, energy, ecosystems, and urbanization. Manu Lal is the director of the Water Center. In March of this year, just a month ago, and I think quite a few of you were at that event, the Water Center hosted Rethinking Water West by convening 450 plus participants, including public and private sector, thought leaders, to rethink the future of water infrastructure, including the financing mechanisms, the regulatory processes, and the technology platforms in the American West and across the nation. So here too, you see that we are actually moving from simply looking academically at water, but that we are actually getting into a more holistic view of what water supply needs in terms of basic understanding of sources and sinks, possibilities to reuse it, but also financing and regulation and policy decisions. Energy Forward. In January, we launched Energy Forward, ASU's new portal for our work and partnerships around supporting the next energy transition. And see Kelly here, I saw Gary before somewhere. They were major drivers together with a large group of faculty, researchers, and others interested in creating a platform to look across the university and outside university at energy and the necessary transitions and transformations in a holistic way. Fast Track Coalition. You might ask, what is a Fast Track Coalition? So some of you know what the 10 must-haves are. We created, as part of the Global Futures Conferences 22 and 23, an initiative where we said we are actually missing all the targets that we have set for ourselves in the SDGs and Paris Agreement and other initiatives. So can we actually bring together thought leaders from around the world, from different sectors, private sector, NGOs, policymakers, indigenous people, academics, to say what are the 10 most important actions we have to take to accelerate along a trajectory that brings us closer to the targets at the time, which is for many the middle of the century. So after 2 conferences, we decided to create a coalition of like-minded entities to work through the must-haves, what do we need, to what do we have to do, we call them the must-dos, to the how to do it, to push from thinking about what is needed to the action space and really start to work on issues and go into the action space to really get us closer back to the initial targets. We are also, as some of you know, we host the bulk of the Secretariat for the Earth League. The Earth League is a group of institutions, about 8 around the world, plus about 35 fellows who are thinking about issues that are timely, that need fast action, and that actually have to be moved forward across different sectors. The Earth League is the umbrella for initiatives such as the 10 New Insights in Climate Science. That's a compilation of topics that are compiled each year, published in a peer-reviewed journal, but also written up in a report that goes to all the negotiators for the COP process. It's also the umbrella for the Fast Track Coalition. And the next meeting here will be held in Hamburg which is one of the institutional members. We have quite a few global partnerships. One of them is UNESCO Bridges. Bridges fosters global collaboration through contributions to the UN Pact for the Future, and by organizing impactful events such as the high-level summit of the Future side event at the UN headquarters in New York City and the Governing Council meeting at UNESCO headquarters in Paris. We also work with the World Bank. So Global Futures works collaboratively with the World Bank Group, with the chief economist, and serve as a co-chair for the We Empower UN SDG Challenge, a partnership with the Women Business and the Law team, including joint research and engagement. We are exploring how we can actually navigate the World Economic Forum. So some of us were at WEF, as it's called typically, in Davos this January. And there we are trying to see how our message can actually inform the decisions that are taken during this long-standing forum. Closing with a few publications and reports. I already mentioned the 10 new insights in climate science. We are in the middle of producing the 10 new insights for 2025 in advance of COP30 in Brazil. We have SEJ, Society of Environmental Journalists. We have their annual meeting here just starting tomorrow and going on through the weekend. We are expecting, in round numbers, 1,000 environmental journalists from many nations. And that is, of course, one way to get messages out into a broad audience. COP30, we are preparing our participation in that. We have to be somewhat flexible this year to see what is possible, what is not possible in terms of language being used and memberships of nations in the process, but we are maneuvering our way through that. And finally, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS, will host its 2026 annual meeting in Phoenix, and it will be centered around the theme Science and Scale. So summarizing, I hope you got a bit of sense of all the activities that are going on in all of the spaces, the fact that we are actually trying to use our insights to advance solutions on critical issues, that on the one hand, we are diagnosing what is happening. So once in a while, we have to be the bearer of tough news. But at the same time, our focus really is on what can be done about that. So we cannot be stuck in repeating the pressures over and over without offering options. And that is especially important for how we train the next generations. We have to show them where they have agency. We also have to be willing to include them more in the decision-making process. And we also have to be much more open and transparent to the outside world to listen to what are their issues and to engage with them in partnerships where we jointly contemplate what can be done and then really move into the action space. So with that, I will close this overview. As I said, it's impossible to be comprehensive, but I hope you got a sense of the breadth of the activities and some of the impact that we already have. Thank you.